YouTube, y'all we come with the worst time to ever have been a human. I ain't gonna lie, bro. It depends, cause it's like you had the plague, you had slavery, you have right now because like you feel me. Like we got robots, we got like technology taking over, and I know y'all see them testing robots. And if you haven't, here go a little clip right here. Ugh. But I ain't gonna lie, bro. Like stuff just crazy right now. Like no matter where, what time period, bro. Like you're cut. I ain't gonna lie. Like maybe when all the wars was going on during the Civil War, the World War Twos, ones, and all that. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. The Great Depression. Yeah, it was tough. But let's go ahead and get to the bill. Let's see what they gonna say. I ain't gonna lie. I feel like we finna hear some crazy
Humans,
stuff.
members of the genus Homo, have come remarkably far
Ooh,
in the 2.8
cavemen. I
million
forget about
years of
that.
our existence, and a lot of progress has especially been made within the last 200. And today we enjoy unprecedented levels of technology that has helped the worldwide lifespan reach roughly 73 years at birth. However, the
Boy.
journey to get here has not been an easy one,
Oh my
and we've had to endure
God.
many hardships, sometimes caused by our own doing. And this is reflected by the shockingly low lifespans seen across time. For example, in 18th century France, it was between 27 and 30 years old.
I would have 10 more years? Oh, boy, what the?
In classical Greece, 25. The Bronze Age, 26.
4?
And during the Neolithic period, it got as low as 20.
I would be dead. I would literally be dead already. I'll be cooked.
Yet this being said, Homo sapiens, or modern humans, have had it relatively easy compared to other human species. This is something you should be eternally grateful for, as life as an early human was sometimes downright bull. And it's not too uncommon for paleontologists to unearth an early human specimen who died under very grisly circumstances. Now, based on research, it seems that many Homo species suffered such lives. But one study in particular found that a certain group, the 2 million-year-old Homo habilis, had it almost comically bad, and died so often so young that the majority of individuals didn't even live long enough to see their teen years, with the average lifespan having been estimated at about just
But what in the is this? What? Who? You know what?
12 years old, so more than 6 times less than the current average.
That's insane.
And what's crazy is that chances are that it was even lower, as the study looked at 26 random specimens and noted a lack of neonate and infantile individuals, heavily suggesting that the mortality rate was in reality much higher, and thus the life expectancy even lower than 12 years old.
Jeez.
Such a fast and short life makes the Homo habilis the last human species you'd want to wake up as, and represents possibly the worst time to have ever been a human overall.
Panther?
Which thus begs the question, why were their lives
Hippos
so
are
utterly
insane.
brutal?
They're dangerous. Can't lie.
Well, unfortunately for them, the answer is that virtually everything was stacked against them, including their very own bodies, as Homo habilis was one of the smallest humans to have ever lived.
Really?
Possibly averaging under 4 feet, or 1.2 meters, making them 32%.
See, women, see, bro, women, they was happy back then with a man that's 4 foot. Y'all be wanting people that's 7 foot. What about us? What about us 5, 6 foot kings? Yeah, y'all be like, he gotta be 6'7". What do you need him to be 6'7"? I'm just hating. I ain't gonna lie, I'm just hating because I ain't 6'7". It's cool. It's cool.
Shorter than ourselves, and in the best case, weighing just 60% of what we do.
I'm just hating.
Such a small body obviously made them quite vulnerable to injuries. And to add fuel to the fire, they didn't even have any notable robustness to their skeletal structure that would have at least helped them compensate for their lack of size. And it's likely that they experienced at least one serious fall throughout their life because they were partially arboreal.
Yeah.
Meaning they spent a good chunk of their lives in
the
trees.
Yeah.
And given that chimps often experience at least one major fall throughout their lives,
Cut.
the same can reasonably be said for Homo habilis, especially since they weren't as well adapted for climbing compared to chimpanzees. Although, relative to other humans, they were more ape-like overall, a result of them having been one of the first of our kind to enter the scene,
That makes sense.
with an existence that spanned from 2.3 to 1.65 million years ago. Some of these ape-like features included longer limbs and slightly apish extremities that allow them to better grip while climbing and swim from branch to branch. Now, possessing the ability to climb with ease is of course very useful, especially when surrounded by predators, and in most cases it lets animals easily avoid danger, therefore prolonging their life. However, in the case of the habilis, the benefits of this ability were largely negated, as it was paired with the worst
Whoa.
possible diet, carnivorism. Now, you'd think that a human living on a
Why you
plant would
smiling
be
like
strictly
that?
vegetarian, but the habilis actually exhibited one of the higher levels of meat eating seen in humans,
What you mean?
reflected by their very large incisors that help them cut through meat, and their proportionally
Ugh,
giant
bitch, get the
mandibles
fuck-
that
oh
were
my
thicker
God,
than
get
those
that
of
off my
any living
screen.
ape
What
or
the-
human,
what is
which allowed them
that?
to generate more torsion
What
and
is
stress
that?
with lighter,
That made my nose
and thus
itch.
helping to rip meat
Don't
off
you
of
show
the
that
body.
again?
This being said, they did also eat a lot of fruit and vegetables,
What is that?
but their meat-rich diet ultimately forced them to leave the safety of trees routinely, a problem exacerbated by their fondness for fish, which brought them close to water, and thus the dangers within. And it wasn't just meat that was the problem, but also how they got it. As for some reason, Homo habilis decided to specialize in scavenging, of all things.
Why?
Which is almost funny considering their small size, lack of large muscles, and limited technology that consisted of simple stone tools. In other words, they did not have much to help them secure kills.
Okay.
And one group of paleontologists found that at best, they would only be able to reliably defend carcasses from jackals and cheetahs.
Sad.
This meant basically nothing though, as Homo
anything
habilis,
else.
who lived in East and South Africa, was surrounded by not one, but multiple large carnivores that would frequently show up to contest
Imagine
carrion.
seeing that. And you
And to
gotta
make
fight
matters
that
worse,
on a
these
daily
same
basis.
predators also routinely preyed on the habilis themselves, as these early humans were, for lack of a better term, easy pickings. And so, if you are a Homo habilis, you can be sure that on the daily, you live under the constant threat of being picked off by a very diverse range of different carnivores, that, mind you, each had their own unique terrible way to dispatch you.
Like, y'all, do y'all, like, imagine, like, this how I know, like, we gotta be grateful, y'all. We could be living this. Like, you gotta be thinking, the gods, you wasn't born in this day. But imagine you, like, I couldn't even imagine going out like this. See, y'all know y'all be going on all them, like, African, like, exploration. No, I couldn't do it. There's no way. Because this, like, with my luck, I might end up like this. No lie.
So I guess at least there's some variety. For now, direct evidence of interactions between predators and habilis are quite rare. But when looking at time and general vicinity, over 30 potential predators have been identified, with large cats in particular having had a profound impact on destroying their lifespans. One of the most prevalent ones
Samurai.
lurking around would have been the Meganterion, a jaguar-sized
What the
saber-toothed
is that?
cat that lived throughout Africa for the entire span of the habilis' existence.
That's not saber-tooth tiger?
And despite being jaguar-shaped, it was more heavily built, and alarmingly had lower limbs that were actually lion-sized. These limbs possessed giant paws at the ends of them where razor-sharp recurved claws sat, just waiting to dig into the flesh of any unsuspecting Homo habilis. Once pinned, the habilis would then get to experience an array of sharp and serrated teeth, including 2 enlarged canines that would sink into their throat, severing major arteries and nerves, and fortunately
Just
leading to
kill me
unconsciousness
fast.
within seconds. However, unfortunately, there's also the chance that an unlucky victim would have had to experience the more rare, but much more terrifying killing method
What is that?
of having its entire head virtually covered by the attacking saber-toothed cat. And miraculously, this actually happened to a known human specimen, who had puncture marks to its occipital bone, in other words, the back of its head. But what's crazy is that the angle of the bite confirmed that the attack did not come from the back, but rather the front, which basically means the Meganterion put the entire human's head in its mouth.
And then clamp down?
And the idea is that on top of causing skull and brain damage, such an attack could kill by completely smothering the victim's nose and mouth with a saber-tooth's jaw, leading to suffocation. And in a case of more bad news for our distant
it gets
relatives,
worse?
the Meganterion had a very healthy appetite for Homo habilis. So much so, in fact, that it literally altered their carbon isotopic levels, which directly shows us that it was even more of a human killer than other animals that are associated with hunting primitive humans,
didn't want nothing
such as the
else.
Dinofelis, which I should also mention coexisted with Homo habilis and presumably hunted it as well. And to add fuel to the fire, there was also Homotherium and Machairodus lurking around too,
What the?
which is very unfortunate, as the latter happened to be one of the largest felids to have ever existed, with some species reaching 405 kilograms or 893 pounds, comparable to both the Smilodon and male polar bears.
Whoa.
At this size, it's not hard to imagine that even a well-placed
Wait,
paw
polar bears was around 1,000,000 years ago? Damn. They oldish.
swipe could take out an individual, especially since many victims seem to be targeted while young. and avoiding death by Machairodus would have been surprisingly difficult, because despite its great size,
Yeah.
Machairodus was a better jumper than many of the smaller, more agile
It
cats,
just climbed the
as
tree,
its legs
though.
were too short to pursue long chases, which indicates that it relied on powerful jumps in order to catch prey.
Boy, they won't catch me, boy. Boy, if I was back then, you tell me they can't go to the distance. Man, I'm taking off, boy. You ain't
Which is
catching
all
me.
to say that escape by climbing a tree was pretty much out of the question.
Damn.
Meanwhile, while smaller, the Homotherium still stuck out as a notoriously bad animal for a habilis to get caught by.
Really?
As its canines
Even
and
the babies?
incisors were shortened but broader than what's seen in other saber-toothed cats, transforming them into powerful puncturing weapons
Oh my
that also
God.
benefited from crenulations. In other words, irregular serrations that were wavy, creating a one-of-a-kind bite that both sliced and punctured simultaneously.
My God.
And now, while these cats were definitely a menace to hapless society, they were not the only group notorious for shortening their lives.
Bombaclat.
As another family of predators that loved to snack on our ancestors were hyenas.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Like the cats, there were also multiple different hyenas that went after hominins. But there were two that really stuck out, those being the Chasmoporthides and Pachycrocuta. Now, in
They
typical
don't look that
unlucky
bad, I
hapless
can't lie.
fashion, the Pachycrocuta happened to be one of the largest hyenas of all time,
What the
with specimens not only averaging the size of a lioness, but also possessing a bone-crushing bite that is likely one of the strongest pound-for-pound bites of any terrestrial mammal.
Ugh.
This unusually powerful bite was also problematic not just because it would absolutely destroy you, but also because the ability to crack bones meant easy
Look
access
at
to
that
bone marrow,
demon.
and thus it's likely that Pachycrocuta showed up to a lot of carcasses. Not a great thing for our scavenging ancestor. And then when you add in the fact that Pachycrocuta likely hunted in packs, you suddenly have a whole serving and a half
Yeah.
of death.
You're cooked.
And if caught, you'd also have to worry about the fact that in many situations, hyenas will literally eat their prey alive, which is something that I at least personally would want to avoid.
Yeah.
And this problem would have actually been worse with the Chasmoporthides, a smaller, yet in some ways scarier, kind of hyena. This was a member of an informal group of hyenas who are touted as being dog-like, meaning they are more gracile and nimble, like
Bro, y'all ever try to run from a dog, bro? Dogs are insanely fast. Like, I thought I was fast until I ran neck and neck with a dog. And the dog beat me. The dog was insane. I had a chocolate popsicle. It was the last one. I never forget this. I think I told this story before. But I had a chocolate popsicle. For some reason, it knew what the chocolate popsicle was, and it started chasing after me. And I thought chocolate was deadly to dogs, but he ate the chocolate. Like, he literally, I was running, and while like when you run like this, when my hand went back, he got it. I was so pissed.
likely prowling around in large packs.
I'm mad thinking about it now.
This more fragile size might sound like good news, but it really isn't. As small, but giant packs of dog-like hyenas eating you is definitely
Boy,
vastly more
what the
painful than getting
Look
one
at
and
that.
done by a giant one. But the real issue wasn't this aspect of the Chasmoporthides, but rather its limb construction, which reflected adaptations designed for extreme speed, bearing a strong resemblance to the legs seen in cheetahs,
Boy,
and thus
what?
leading to it being nicknamed the running or hunting hyena.
Oh, you
The
can
major
even
problem
outrun
with
him.
this is that Homo habilis, on the other hand, was not a very good runner, and at best could achieve a certain degree of endurance running. And to add to their misery, these hyenas were also hypercarnivores, meaning that over 70% of their calories came from meat alone, a
Dang.
diet they enacted through their razor-sharp
wanted
teeth
us,
that
bruh.
strangely had edges shaped like those of a big cat. But as bad as these guys
Ooh,
sound,
ooh,
they
that
were
scared the
nothing
sh-
compared
that
to what
scared
lurked
me,
in
ain't
the
gonna lie, I don't know
waters
why.
of the Homo habilis' environment. Giant crocs. In other words, a nightmare for our ancestors, considering
They
that, as
nightmares for us
mentioned,
now.
they had a fondness for fishing, and not with a fishing rod or spear, but
Ooh,
rather with
ooh, I
their
thought it was
hands,
Ale- oh my
which
God, I
almost
thought
makes
she
it
was
seem
cooked.
like they wanted to be hunted
I thought
down
she
by
was cooked.
crocodiles. And let's just say, these crocs were more than happy to oblige. The most notable kinds back then happened to have belonged to the same genus of crocodile alive today, the Crocodylus. That being said,
like that
you would not
name,
have to
but-
worry about confusing them for any living species, as these ones were utterly giant.
It was bigger
With the
than
two
an
largest
elephant?
having been the Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni and the Anthropophagus. Now, you may be wondering about the anthrop part of the latter's name, and the reason for it is because this croc loved to eat people, leading to a name which literally means human eater. And of course, as such, we have direct evidence for its humanly diet. as in one formation alone, 2 juvenile habilises were found with severe damage to their legs and feet that matched the teeth of this crocodile, and thus showcasing how they would seemingly target the legs while springing ambushes, and then proceed to kill them by either drowning them or using a death roll to literally rip their limbs off, which apparently happened in both of these 2 cases. In other words, not a pleasant way to go out. And fighting back was not an option, as Anthropophagus was covered in very sturdy armor, and was even larger than your normal saltwater crocodile, with adults reaching a length of 7.5 meters or 25 feet, and weighing around 1.5 tons. To just put that into perspective, the longest recorded extant croc, an individual named Lolong, only reached 20 feet or 6 meters, and weighed just 1.1 tons. So as you can imagine, at this gargantuan size, Anthropophagus surely had one killer bite, which along with its human diet, makes it come off as one pretty devilish creature. Which is why it's perfectly fitting that it also possessed 2 prominent ridges or horns above its eyes that made it not just lethal, but also visually terrifying. However, while it seems to have definitely been the most problematic croc for humans, it wasn't actually the largest, as that title went to the Thorbjarnarson, a slightly older crocodile that also coexisted with the habilis, and preyed on them during the earlier days of our ancestors.
What is that? I don't like how it's built. Like, the body is slender, but the legs fat, and then the neck is huge, and then the head small. Like, what? God didn't like y'all at all. He skipped so many steps with y'all. Like, what is you?
Thankfully, it wasn't that much bigger than its younger counterpart,
Boy, what the fuck?
having been about 8 meters or 26.2 feet long. But it's not that much of an upside,
I'ma shut up.
as that of
Don't
course still makes it the
fuck?
largest crocodile species ever discovered,
That looks
which in
huge.
turn also makes it one of the biggest true crocodiles to have ever
Oh
lived.
my god.
And because its remains are so few and far between, there's a very good chance that it got even bigger. What was really unique about this predator, though, was its skull, as in addition to being gargantuan, it was also much broader than what's seen in other living crocodiles, perhaps being an adaptation to help better grip and crush armored prey, such as large turtles.
Oh my god.
Despite this specialization, it was still likely an opportunistic feeder, who no doubt fed on the occasional poor sod.
I believe it.
In fact, the holotype for Homo habilis, a specimen dubbed OH7, may have been a victim itself, as its foot and leg bones bore large, broad, and deep puncture wounds that matched the teeth of a giant croc. And like the other fellows I mentioned earlier, it seems that OH7 lost its limb in this violent attack, and also lost its life. But what's crazy is that things for this specimen were even more unfair than just this, as a certain group of researchers
what is
believe that
that?
it wasn't just attacked by a croc, but a mammalian carnivore as well. Because while analyzing the upper body, paleontologists noticed that on its parietal bone, the holotype had shallow groove marks that did not match any bite seen in crocodiles, but rather the damage bore an uncanny resemblance to the bite of large cats, and thus leading to the idea that a leopard-sized mammal had taken a chunk out of OH7's head. Ouch, to say the least. Although, it's not known for certain if this attack had been carried out after the specimen had already died, or if this had been an earlier attack that had managed to survive. While this question remains, it's clear that these guys had many predators to watch out for. And of course, prehistoric cats, hyenas, and giant crocs were just the tip of the iceberg, as you also had many predators around that are still alive today, including various panthera, canids, birds of prey, and snakes. Snakes especially were likely another major component in explaining Homo habilis'
I don't
short
see how y'all
lifespan,
like snakes. I don't
because
like
despite
snakes.
no direct evidence of attacks being known of, we do know that in general,
that's
snakes
from
and hominids have a
Anaconda.
dicey relationship at best.
I remember that
And to
movie.
this day,
W movie.
snakes cause tens of thousands of deaths within Africa alone, with venomous snakes being the worst perpetrators.
Makes sense.
While in uncontacted tribes,
Look at
attacks by
that.
constricting snakes remain the
Look
highest source
at
of mortality
that.
for specific groups.
Why do y'all
And
like
some scientists
them?
believe that snakes were so problematic for early man that they essentially created an evolutionary arms race between the two, with enhanced visual detection possibly being an adaptation designed to better help us detect camouflaged snakes. Not to mention that primates in general may be literally hardwired to fear snakes,
Wow.
at least according to a few studies. So in other words, it's pretty much guaranteed that Homo habilis were also victims of serpents.
Jesus.
Now, the amount of predators
Look
that
at
the
that,
habilis'
bro.
diet forced them to confront was no doubt a travesty for them. Yet it wasn't just predators that ascending the trees brought them into contact with, as many territorial herbivores and omnivores were also found in great numbers, and included a variety of prehistoric rhinos, hippos, giant warthogs, elephantidae, giraffes, and bovids. Needless to say, these animals did not kill humans as often as predators.
Okay, good.
But deaths still happened. And despite being lesser in numbers and
Okay, so we have
diversity,
to worry about everything.
herbivores and omnivores in
Bugs,
present-day Africa cause a few
water.
thousand deaths per year across the board. And if forcing them to confront vicious animals wasn't enough, then it's a good thing that their diet's drawbacks went even further than this, as it possibly also led to health problems, namely to the teeth. As of the 26 individuals studied, only about 40% had decent teeth.
Yo, but teeth could get black? That's so nasty, I can't even talk. How the fuck? Oh my, yeah, because they didn't have toothpaste.
While the rest had severe wear and tear to their enamels, and chipped and cracked teeth. And while this may not sound all that gloomy, it really is when you consider that the oldest specimen was only 25 years old. And there were even multiple examples of specimens who were under 10 that already had major dental problems. And to really exemplify this, one individual, who was 17 years old, was found with dentistry so poor that it was about 2 times as bad as what you would expect to see in a modern elderly human who also had bad dental hygiene.
Oh, well.
This remarkable widespread level of damage was 100% caused by the
expect that
diet of
happen.
Homo habilis,
Oh my
but
god.
it was not necessarily a result of the scavenged meat. It could have been instead a combination of flesh, bone, and tough plant material that caused a lot of wear and tear. Plus, given their lack of offense, the habilis likely did not get the first pick when it came to food, which would have resulted in it having a limited choice and forcing people to eat whatever was available, even if it was no good for their dental hygiene. Another factor in this lack of choice, which in itself likely also contributed to even more deaths, was their environment and climate. As during the Pleistocene, Africa experienced a period of intense fluctuations in the climate that resulted in coldness and increased aridity that made food options very scarce, and even leading to systematic starvation. And it's believed that as the climate worsened, populations had to rely more and more on scavenging meat to supplement their caloric intake, which in turn led to again more deaths, as it brought them into contact with more predators, who also would have been more violent as they too felt the strains of a dying ecosystem.
Indeed.
And interestingly, but perhaps not that surprising, the competition that was created from these climatic changes may have also led the habilis to experience more fatalities at the hands of an animal it was very close to, itself. And I don't actually mean other habilises, although this was definitely a possibility, but rather other humans, as habilis remains have been found in the same area of not just one, but 3 other Homo species,
Wow.
as well as another hominin, with these specifically being
What
Homo
the
ergaster,
is that?
erectus, and rudolfensis.
Bro, you gotta stop putting these pictures on my screen, bro. I ain't gonna lie. These pictures are scary. And y'all think I'm playing. They actually sending shivers down my body. It's nasty. What is that?
And the Paranthropus boisei.
See, look at that.
respectively.
That's
We
not
are aware
human,
that
bro.
interactions with
I
these
don't
close
care what-
relatives
that's not
at
human.
least sometimes ended violently,
That shit
as there
looks
is at least one
demonic.
known Paranthropus specimen who was definitely killed by a habilis, possibly even becoming
That's
food
what Adam
source.
and Eve look like.
Now in this particular instance, the habilis managed to secure the dub. Yet with the other Homo species, it was likely at a severe disadvantage for a few reasons. Firstly, it was the smallest Homo species of the time,
Yeah.
and the least adapted for a terrestrial life, so any confrontation on the ground would have been the home field for the others.
Boy, that boy big as.
Secondly, the habilis unfortunately had the second smallest brain seen in any human,
That's tough.
with an average brain size of between 500 and 687 centimeters cubed, making it 25% smaller than the next smallest brained Homo species it coexisted with, the ergaster, while the erectus could sometimes have a brain literally double the size.
Wow.
This large difference likely led to an intelligence gap between the habilis and its competitors, a notion partially
They just
reflected
was
by the
cooked
varying
from
technologies
birth.
that each species achieved.
Why was they
As
even
for example,
made?
the erectus had
Like,
access to
what?
controlled fires, picks, knives, and cleavers, which would have given them a huge edge during
Exactly.
any fight, to say the least. And to make matters worse,
Boy, what is
despite
this
not being a
picture?
hominin, I will also
What
mention
is
that
this
the ape
picture?
Dinopithecus was likely a part of the fray as well.
What is this
And
picture?
in some ways, this creature was even more unsettling than multiple Homo species, as it was a giant primate that was closely related to baboons, and thus had giant fangs and would have been roped with large amounts of muscles. And when considering the fact that it could have been 3 times the size of Homo habilis, we should probably add this guy to the already very long list of potential predators.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Well,
it was a very
stop
tough
putting
and
this
unfair
up.
world to the Homo habilis.
I hate these
And according
pictures.
to the original study, The worst part of an individual's life would have started at around age 10, when they
Stop
entered a
doing that.
phase
Fuck
associated with
the
maximum
video, bro.
mortality.
Making me
Though
feel
ironically,
weird.
reaching 10 in the first place would have already made you one of the luckier ones, as based on another study, it's presumed that 40% of everyone died before reaching double digits.
Wow.
And if we factor in juveniles and infants, then it's believed that this number increases to 60%. This in turn would mean that the average age of death given in the study would actually be lower than 12 years.
Wow.
Which then of course raises
like
a whole other question
7.
on how in the world did the Habilis even manage to exist for such a long time?
How long did
Perhaps
it
the answer lies in their technology, that did in fact allow them to access bone marrow and tough plant material. Additionally, there is an offhand chance that a 1.7 million year old windbreak, or rough hut, was built by a group of Homo habilis, which if accurate, implies that they had a way to deal with the worsening climate of their
Okay,
times.
so they
The
had
number
some type
game
of
also seems to have
intelligence?
played a big part in their miraculous extended survival, as paleontologists estimate that group sizes may have reached up to 85 different members, and thus allowing for more protection and a lower chance that any given individual would have been picked off by a carnivore. Though honestly, based on everything, that didn't seem to work out too great for them. And who knows, perhaps the extremely high mortality rate was what finally broke them. But whatever the case, one thing is clear. Being a Homo habilis sucked.
Yeah. If I was born in this time, I'd be pissed. Like, see, bro, that's what I'm saying, bro. Yeah, y'all think you got it bad now. Imagine being a Homo habilis. So you would be God. So bro, life would be terrible. Every day you wake up, somebody is gone. Literally every day. Like he said, it was like the life the life what? I don't know. I see. This is why you need to stay in school, kids. You need to stay in school. But bro, imagine the max you could live is 12. That's literally insane. But y'all let me know y'all thoughts and opinions. Do you think there was a worse time than this? And I'll see y'all boys and girls next video. We out. Ugh.